Imagine that life is going just fantastic. You've got everything in order. It's going the way that you've designed it. You've got a great family. You know what your routine is. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, suddenly you get sick, you get a few symptoms, and before you know it, your entire life is turned upside down. What are you going to do when suddenly the things that you took care of every single day, now you can't, and you have to be dependent on others, and you're wondering what your future is even going to be? That's going to be the subject that we're going to discuss today in episode number 34 of the Audacious Faith Podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. So good to have you today. It's going to be a great episode. I have a very special guest that I'm very privileged to have with us. You know, as I mentioned in the introduction, what do you do when life turns itself upside down? And the guest that I have today, he experienced that. I mean, he was just going along, very successful business owner, well-respected, family man, kind of had all his ducks in a row. Life is pretty good. And then all of a sudden, you get sick, what should have been routine, and then it got much worse than expected. And so we're going to go ahead and kind of explore that. I know that some of you have had that possibly in your own family, or possibly even know people that are very close to you that have experienced that as well. So it's my good friend, David Lynn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to start right in with it. So go ahead, you know, for the people that don't know you, or even those who do, maybe a little bit of review. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your family, how you came to faith.
Okay, right. My name is David. I'm 37 years old. I came to the United States when I was 11 years old. I came from China. I grew up in China. I was born in China, and then our family came to the United States around 1996. My dad was a doctor, eye surgeon. My mom was a banker in China. Wanted a better life for the family, and back in China those days, you can only allow to have one kid, right? They have the one-child policy, so they want a second kid, and they couldn't do it. So they came to the States for better future for the family and better life, I would say, right? So my sister was born. Matter of fact, today is my sister's birthday.
Awesome.
So it's just me and my little sister. We're about 14 years apart. 37, so she would be 24. She'll be 24. So growing up, I always wanted to be somebody. Growing up, I want to be somebody. I watched my parents struggle with money and finance all the time, being a first-generation American, the dinner table, and just wanted to do something to help my mom and dad. And that was the reason why I got started with this company that I'm at right now in finance. I want to learn about money and finance to educate other people. And first things first is to really educate myself and my family, my mom and dad. I want to retire my mom and dad. I want to send my little sister to go to college. I want to do all that stuff for them because they sacrificed their life for me. So through the world of finance and in sales and leadership, I've achieved those goals. By the time I was 30 years old, I retired my mom and dad. I was able to send my little sister go to college, helping her. And just doing a lot of good things for my family, take care of my family before I got started with my own family. Now that I have a family, I have a wife, and I have 2 kids. I have 2 boys, Maxwell and Nicholas. He's 9 and 7, so 2 boys at this time. And yeah, so that's my life.
So awesome. So things were pretty much, I mean, you mentioned you tried to design your life with a plan. You had goals. You wanted to retire your parents. Take care of your family. And so for the most part, that was happening.
Yeah.
And these are things that you kind of set out to control, right? And then life got out of control.
Yeah.
Suddenly. So all of a sudden, one day, with all that going on, you start to get some symptoms. And you want to maybe kind of explain kind of what happened from that point?
Yeah. This is the first time me actually sharing this. It's kind of a emotional subject. I agree to this podcast. Just last year has been a roller coaster, my personal life. It's funny because my whole life, especially in business, I've been in the business since I was 20, so 16 years I've been in business. I wouldn't say it's all smooth, but you know you're in control, because in business you have negativities, you have the ups and downs in the business, but it's how you react to it, right?
Sure.
And then something that just hit last year that I can't control, there's nothing I couldn't control, is when COVID hit, right? I never imagined that I would have I'm 36 years old. Last year in summer, my wife got sick, my kids got sick, we all tested positive, and I thought it was going to be just like the bug.
Right.
And then everybody's okay. Like, we all tested positive. My wife pretty much have no symptoms. My kids is really mild symptoms. And then I start having fever, lost my, the taste and smell, my senses.
Okay.
And I thought it was going to be like, okay, we'll probably get over it.
Sure.
4 days later, I woke up in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m. in the morning, I couldn't breathe. I told my wife, I said, you need to take me to the ER right now instead of me calling 911, just because we live pretty close, fairly close to the hospital. And I said, just drop me off the ER. You need to do it now. I can't really explain. I couldn't really breathe. So she dropped me off, and next thing I know, I was there for 22 days. So 22 days in the hospital. I've never thought like this would happen to me.
Yeah. So you had never really been in the hospital prior to that, right?
No.
I mean, you were healthy, you were fit, you were somebody who would work out.
Yeah.
And basically all the things that people would check in the boxes saying you're very low risk. And I mean, you were young too, didn't have any prior issues, nothing. And then, like you're saying, you're used to being in control, you control your environment, and all of a sudden it's out of control.
Out of control.
So this happens totally. I would think, I mean, I wasn't there obviously, but I would think that the combination of the physical symptoms and that part of it, suddenly not being in control and everything kind of would have been so out of your comfort zone that it probably really threw you for
Well, this is the
loop.
first time I stayed away from my kids, my wife and kids. Imagine like this time around.
Right.
I mean, the closest thing I got in the hospital for was my appendix. It was like for a couple of days.
Okay.
And for those 2 days, I have my mom, my dad, I have people visiting me and giving me a lot of love and visitations and all that. Well, this time around, it's 22 days of no visitation. Not even doctors and nurses that want to come near you because of, during the surge of Delta last year.
Right.
Maybe I get to see one human being every, like 4 minutes, 5 minutes out of the whole day. Like, I'm talking about doctors and nurses all together, maybe like 5 minutes, to stop by, check on you. Hi, you okay? You stay there, you're going to get well soon.
So almost from a distance.
Kind of a distance, I'll protect, you're trying to have a conversation, and people are afraid. I understand. People are afraid of the virus, and of course things gradually got better nowadays, but during the surge of last year, people still they don't really understand it, so they still very, very trying to keep their distance. Very much. So it was quite lonely. I mean, I felt loneliness for the first, like to that extent, for the first time in my life, like just alone, being by myself or in the hospital, and that messes your head quite a bit.
Right.
When you're in that much of just loneliness.
I think that's an aspect, what you're bringing up right here is probably an aspect that a lot of people are forgetting about or not realizing. I didn't quite connect that until you just brought it up.
Yeah.
Is that would make it so much worse, not being able to have the comfort. And what you're saying is, what I think most people are thinking, okay, my family can't come in. But they're not realizing that even nurses and doctors don't want to come in. At that point, they're trying to protect themselves.
Yeah.
So they're almost like saying hi from a distance. Are you still breathing? Right?
Absolutely. They're checking your monitors. They're doing their job, and I'm telling you, like these frontline workers, they saved my life. But they're protecting themselves from from the virus, and they're protecting themselves.
Sure.
As much as they can, with gears and trying to keep a distance. But it's definitely a month, 3 weeks of vulnerability and loneliness and a lot of reflecting, prayers. It was tough. It was the worst year of my life in terms of my health.
So were you at a point, I don't know if you could even tell because you were isolated. I know that people went in and people that were in the hospital would be at different stages. you got to the point of a pretty serious
Yeah.
stage.
For sure.
So you were maybe more isolated than, say, the average person comes in, just needs a little bit of help, maybe, you think? Or
Well, first thing I got in, they gave me oxygen therapy right away.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't say more isolated or more or less. I think the whole floor was isolated.
Okay.
You know, it's like the floor, the fourth floor. You just can't go there.
So it's almost,
The whole floor is a COVID
it was
patients.
kind of eerie, I
Yeah,
would think?
yeah.
Is it?
Well, I never got out of my room.
Okay.
They don't let you go
So
out
it's
of your-
just so quiet, it was almost like
Quiet.
solitary, except it wasn't a dark cell.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did that play? I mean, so when faith comes in, maybe sometime you're talking with God. I mean, you obviously had a lot of time to be thinking about this stuff. The things that, I mean, you were a busy guy. You know, you're
Real
normal,
active.
active every day. I mean, you weren't just sitting around. You were on top of things, taking care of things, probably often running, 12, 16-hour days at least of things that you were doing. And now you can't do anything. So how did that play now over the course of 22 days? I mean, did it feel like everything was just slipping out of your control and you were just, I mean, what was going through your head with that?
Good question. Because, it's crazy because when things are doing well, most people don't talk to God. And I'm,
I think we're all guilty
right?
of that.
Right? So when things are going well, and then it's almost like you ask me, how do you encounter your faith? It's always the dark times.
Mm-hmm.
My early 20s, my late teens and 20s, it was one of those dark time in my life. And I found God because I had some quiet moments, some quiet time for myself, by myself. And you ask and you reflect and you ask for help and you go, man, if I can get out of the situation, right? You make all these, I would say, prayers and promises and, to become a better person. And that's what happened. My first encounter back in my late teens and 20s, I was going through some dark time in my life and my personal life, where I needed to change myself and my environment. And that's when I found him.
Okay.
And this is the second time I didn't find him. Since then I've been, I've always had a relationship with God since my 20s.
Right.
Late teens, early 20s. And, but during this time of 22 days, I mean, your faith is your last hope.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there? It's different because before, when I get into situations like these, you would think about other things.
Okay.
You would think about money. Mm-hmm. You would think about what's going to happen to this, my family, my kids, my mom and dad, because, that's before they retired. And I got sick before. But you don't think about, all of a sudden, just money is not as important this time.
Right.
When you start having some kind of success and some kind of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And only thing that I was praying for was really just to breathe.
Yeah.
So then you realize how much you take things for granted.
Sure.
That's what happened, really. I had a realization of my life, how great my life was before I got sick and how much I took things for granted.
Okay.
That was a conversation I had.
A lot of the conversations.
Yeah. Like with myself and God, it was like how much you take things for granted.
I think one of the verses that's coming to my mind as you're sharing
Yeah.
this right now is that verse that says, "Be still and know that I am God." And I think when people go through things like what you went through, sometimes we even look at the story of Job in the Old Testament, right? And people make the mistake sometimes of assuming, well, is this some kind of punishment to you or something like that? But often it's not. It has nothing to do with that at all. But sometimes God just puts us in situations where we're forced to be still. Based on the fact that I know you've heard this phrase, that things in life don't happen to us but for us. So did you get any sense of that now that you're looking back? Now you're past the 22 days and you can breathe, which makes it a little easier to reflect now. How was this for you? I mean, what are some things that God, in a way, blessed you through this, in the sense that as he brings you out on the other side, maybe some of the greatest takeaways? I think you just mentioned one of them, things that you take for granted.
Got to be more grateful.
Yeah, more grateful.
Yeah. Great question. I'm a lot closer to my wife and my kids,
Okay.
my family.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for my family because when all that's gone, when you take away, I mean, you're talking about, I don't know if you ever stayed in the hospital before.
Fortunately, no, but you never know.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, right? I never thought that I would be in a place when I needed assistance to go to the restroom.
Uh-huh.
To bathe. I mean, to wash, just to clean myself up.
Sure.
That's where, I guess that's where you feel, I was telling you about this during lunch, I was like, I felt really useless. I never felt like that in my life. That's a really harsh thing to say to yourself, but I felt useless for almost 20 days. The first 2-3 weeks, I felt useless. Couldn't do anything besides laying on my stomach.
Okay.
And then you look back, what have I learned from this? Is to really help, I want to give back more to others, and just to realize how much how great you have it, how blessed I am.
Yeah.
How grateful and how blessed I am. And, how much I'm, I think he has more purpose for me to stick around and do things like these and talk about, giving back and talk about getting better and talking about, faith and all that stuff.
Right.
Back to other people. And then, I don't know if I told you this, but my son was a premature baby.
No, you didn't mention that.
Yeah. My eldest, he went through the similar. It's kind of crazy how he was born, and he was struggling for air.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because it was it was pretty bad for him. He was born at 26 weeks.
Okay.
My son Maxwell. And now 10 years later, I'm experiencing the things that he experienced when he was a baby.
Yeah.
So make me realize so that's hey, this everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's for you to feel the pain that your son go through. Maybe it's to for you to have more compassionate. Maybe it's to to slim down your ego. Maybe it's to whatever it is. It's all that all that stuff is just those 22 days and on the conversation. I learned to love myself more. I learned to love others more. I learned to really start taking in seriously about my health, exercising, watch what I eat, all the things that we're supposed to do, but we don't do. When you're this close, you're like, man, when I get better, I need to get back in that. So fast forward, I lost 26 pounds during that period of time. 26 pounds.
So more than a pound a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
26 pounds. So I walk out. They always say so back what you're saying about it's not happened to you, it's for you. So I asked the Lord, I'm like, Lord, what can I learn from this? It's always half empty or half full, right? The glass.
Right.
You can say you're really, really skinny and you're losing all the weight. Why is this happening to me? In order for me to get better, I have to ask him, what can I learn from this? What's a great outcome can come out of this? So I thought to myself, I say, well, maybe it's a good thing that you lose that 26 pounds, and so you can fit on those jeans that you haven't fit in a long time, right?
That's a blessing, right?
It's a blessing, right? So I just keep looking forward to that. I remember I was telling my wife, I was like, when I get out of this thing, I'm going to buy one of these skinny jeans that people always wear, because I couldn't fit in them before.
You figured you weren't skinny, so it didn't work, right?
Yeah. So
that's why I don't wear them.
So that's one. That's the humor side of it. But there's a lot of things, just the things that I want to. There's a calling for me to get out of that place I was at. I was almost into the ventilator.
Yes.
I was begging for the doctor not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You're this close. Like, you have to do it, or else we have to put you in the ventilator." So he says, "Give me one more night." And I almost cried. I mean, I cried and just asked for that forgiveness and that chance.
So you were at this particular point you're just mentioning right now. So really desperation at that point. No way for you to fix it. No way for you to get any better. And you're staring at a possible ventilator is what the doctor, and you already knew what that meant, right? I mean, for most people, they weren't coming back from that. So I'm imagining, I can't really put myself in your position not having been there. All the stuff you're talking about gaining, I mean, you loved your family, but now they mean even more. You know, being isolated from them for that period of time. You just had some FaceTime, that was about it, right?
And I couldn't really tell them because I don't want them to worry about me.
Right, so you were trying to put on a good...
It's hard enough to...
Yeah.
You know, it's hard enough for her to take care of 2 kids all
Right.
on her own and bills and all this stuff, and I just don't want to give her any more bad news. So I kept it to myself.
Okay, so
that was...
Was that difficult to keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
Did you almost feel like...
Try to fake it.
I'm trying to protect you is why you're doing it, but at the same time...
Because there's nothing she could have done.
Yeah, she couldn't even come see you.
No, nothing. Like she couldn't, nothing. So it's only, really, it's me and God and doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
So another verse that's coming to my mind based on what you're saying is that there's a verse where God says, "My strength is made perfect in your weakness." I think you really were facing that, right? Where just there was no ability to change it. So you're in your last evening before they're looking at a ventilator, so you're that close. You're less than 24 hours away. All right, and so do you recall what kind of prayers were going up at that point? I mean, I know this is really personal, and I'm putting you on the spot, but just anything you want to share.
I asked him, "Give me an angel."
Mm-hmm.
And angel showed up.
So in what way? I mean...
Doctors and nurses.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, you go to the hospital, you have all these doctors in different shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And for 2 weeks almost, you know, before I was put in the, you know, almost that close moment, I have a few doctors, and they're, give them all the credits, but like I said, there's very, very distant.
Right.
Not personal, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I asked for the prayer. I was like, "Please show me someone like that can help me. Give me somebody that can help me. Give me an angel, Lord."
Mm-hmm.
And I always say this to him too, and we become really good friends. It's funny. Mm-hmm. Dr. Bose. Okay. So he's, he gave me his personal cell. That's how close we are.
Nice.
You know, and we were at St. Jude, and he showed up. Here's this doctor, young doctor, ICU doctor, and he goes, "Listen, you're in really bad shape, and you're not doing the things that the doctors are telling you to do. Like, you're gonna get on your stomach, do the little position thing that they talked about. It's called proning. Okay. You need to breathe. Like, you need to do your exercises because you're this close getting the ventilator. I'm telling you, like, I have to put you there. You're this close." And that was the angel, my first guy. Okay. And I said, "Teach me how to do it." He sat down with me for, I don't know, like, this is a doctor, ICU doctor, and he sat with me for like 30 minutes. Okay. Teaching me how to breathe, breathing exercises, giving me my lessons about my lungs, going over my x-rays. Okay. You know, like, have me understand my body better. You know, why? What are mucus? What are they? You know, what are your lung looking like right now? You know, why is it filled with water? Like, it's giving me an education about my lungs. Like, this is what's happening to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that education really changed, like saved me.
Okay.
I understand how to breathe better. I learned from him. So the last minute the whole night I was doing breathing exercises.
Okay.
You know, one thing that he said to me, it was like, hey, look, this is what's happening in the ICU when you're in the ventilator. You're supposed to be on your back, like on your stomach, not on your back, on your stomach for 14 hours. So you're going to do that anyways when you're not conscious. You might as well do that now. Get on your stomach as long as you can, breathe, and try to just, breathe and work your lungs. Like, just, it's you now. You got to fight this thing.
Yeah.
Saved my life.
So somebody actually seeing you as more than just another
Just a patient. Seriously.
Right.
I pray for it. So I've never shared this story with anybody.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. So
Yeah. Except for doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who actually had the compassion
Yeah.
to. So it's probably no doubt in your mind that God sent you that particular doctor.
Yeah, because I asked for it.
Yeah, at that moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't, even the word says you have not because you ask not. And pretty awesome. Your story is very riveting,
Thank you.
to say the least. So you're breathing through this. You're working hard. You pray for that angel. And then, so then the next day there was a turnaround from the breathing all night? I mean, I'm assuming you're not sleeping.
No. Well, I didn't sleep for that long.
Yeah.
22 days. I was on this thing called the high pressure. It was like the last thing you do before you get into that ventilator it's called the high flow pressure oxygen.
Okay.
Where it's like, it's not the regular one, it's high pressure. And we're like the max liter in pressure. So I'm on that thing, and I learned how to breathe better. So I think that got me out of the situation I was at. Just to learning breathing techniques. Because the reason why you need to get in the ventilator is because your level is low, your oxygen level is low.
Right. Which starts to shut down everything else.
Yeah, your organs and everything else needs oxygen.
Right.
And I was in my 80s,
Okay.
being at the max level oxygen, through my nose. I was
Right.
in the 80s, so that's why, because my lungs were filled with water. So, but the breathing techniques, how to breathe and with your nose and all that. So what the doctors taught me makes me wonder, why was I not taught that in the first place?
Right.
Think about that. But yeah.
So 22 days of really not sleeping much at all. Obviously, the body needs sleep. So I'm thinking that emotionally now, besides the fear and everything else, besides the isolation, now you've got the fatigue. So tired but can't sleep because you can't get air. You hear of people that have something much less than that, say like a sleep apnea or something like that wakes them up. And so now you're experiencing this for 3 weeks of time. Okay? No TV, anything?
Yeah, there's a TV.
TV, but
from like 1980s.
So are you finding yourself?
No flat screen for sure.
I mean, I can only think back to one time in my life where I got pretty sick. I mean, not to where you're looking at. And
They had the Olympics on that time.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you starting to get like even your emotions? You're probably getting surprised at your own reactions. Maybe you're like crying at commercials and all kinds of weird responses that you normally wouldn't have.
No.
No. So you pretty much stayed level. Okay. Well, that's good.
I think the conversation I have with my wife, my kids, my family, my mom and dad. Really, these are the closest one out of people that I talk to.
Right.
Couldn't really talk to my teammates. I didn't want to scare them as well.
Right.
I mean, that, and God kept me alive, like kept my faith, kept me going,
Right.
kept me wanting to stay alive, just because how much love they have
Sure.
for me, how much encouragement they have for me.
So that's a good question. So when you're getting tired and you're trying to fight something like this, when people go through this, you would say, I mean, does it get to a point where you're hanging on more for others than yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know they need
You know, in
you.
business, say that you need to have a why, get a strong why, so you can move forward with the business, and all the rejections and the ups and downs of business. Just
Sure.
when you have a strong enough why, really, it won't matter. It goes the same with your health. My why was getting back to my kids. My why was getting back to my family, was providing that fatherhood for my kids. Like, I have to get back to my kids.
Right.
I have to get back to my wife. I have to get back to my family. So that's everything.
Yeah.
Everything was for that.
So it just increased in value multifold, even though it already was valuable.
And I start
to you.
counting my blessings.
Yeah.
I start asking, what am I grateful for? All the things that I accumulated, quote unquote, right, in the past 10, 20, 10, 15 years in business,
Yeah.
set me up, and I'm so glad that it set me up in a position where I'm so grateful, laying on my stomach
Yeah.
in tubes and wires all hooked up. But I think I'm very grateful. Like, I'm so blessed. Blessed. Knowing that if I I'm with God, or my family would be taken care of financially. Because of concept that was taught to me when I was fairly young, right?
Yeah.
In my teens and 20s.
Right.
In business. Assets that we've accumulated in the past. Business that we built. What good comes out of it? Keep asking me about that question. Like,
Yeah.
what good comes out of this situation? A lot. Two of my best guys just hit their highest, quote unquote watermark, like the highest income month.
Yeah.
Two of my guys. One of my guys made like $60,000 that month, and that one month that I was in the hospital. But it's not always peachy, right? It's you got the good and the bad, and you got the good and the evil come out of it, right?
Sure.
You got the good things happening to you in business, and you got the bad things. I have two of my guys that quit the business. My best guy that quit the business, because they lack the leadership. I cannot provide during this 5-6 months.
Yeah.
So it's not all peachy, right?
Right.
You got where my primary business took a total, like a big loss. I was sharing with you in during lunch. While my other business thrived. So there's a balance. I think God brings that balance to you.
Sure.
You're not always gonna get, because that's what I was used to. That humbled me a lot. Life humbled me a lot.
When you hit a wall.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everything was just going up, getting better, getting better. Everything's getting good,
Yeah.
like unstoppable. You had that moment where you just feel like you're invincible.
Right.
That was, with his blessings, right?
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
invincible for like years. And then everything stops.
Absolutely. So the question that comes to my mind then, knowing what you do for a living, you're someone who instructs others all of the time, right? And one of the things that I know you instruct them is, look, you need to be coachable.
Right.
Things may not make sense, they may seem hard to you, but you just need to do what you're being told to do because this is what's best for you, right? So now it's completely flipped around in a different avenue, but something so serious when it comes to breathing. You're in a situation where a doctor's telling you, look, you're going to end up on a ventilator, and you already know you may not come back from that, all right? So you were discussing a little bit about this proning position, which is what, just like laying on your stomach with your head, very uncomfortable. And how long were you saying that was? How many hours you had to do that?
14 hours.
14
That's
hours.
what I was told.
All right. As he's explaining this to you, are you thinking to yourself, I don't know that I can do what you're asking me? Is that coming through your mind somewhat, especially since you're having trouble breathing as it is?
Yes, because I don't know if you know the position itself. It looks a lot of pain, especially on your joints and neck. And, I don't usually sleep on my stomach.
Yeah, I don't think many people do. As they get to be
no
adults.
pillows and, you're supposed to put a pillow on your stomach so you're kind of like an elevated position where this is your head and you're kind of like this. Mm-hmm. That's proning. Like that. First thing I got in the hospital was a nurse and a doctor said, this is what it looks like. And it gives you a little sheet with characters, with drawings of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you're looking at this and you're like, man, I can't do that. That's painful.
Uh-huh.
On your neck, like imagine just on your neck like this all day. I can't do that.
And that's for a person who's not sick.
Yeah.
That would be painful.
Yeah, and they say that's what you're supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
That's what you're supposed to do, proning and do this lung exercise.
Okay.
You got to blow into this thing called the IS.
It's like that
incentive
plastic tube thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's called the incentive something. I call it the IS. You need an incentive spirometer or something, and then you need to blow in that thing. And I'm like, I can barely breathe. Mm-hmm. You want me to blow into that thing? So,
yeah.
Back to what you're saying, coachable versus not coachable. I was not coachable in the beginning.
Okay.
Because it's painful.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do when you're sick. Mm-hmm. It's not easy when you're not sick. It's harder when you're sick. How do you expect me to blow into that thing when I can barely have any air for myself?
Yeah.
How do you expect me to, be in more agony position when I'm already in such a agony position already?
Right.
With all the tubes hanging out and the wires and poking me every, couple of hours. They're testing my blood and all that. Mm-hmm. How can I do that? So I asked him, how can I do that? I can't do that. Mm-hmm. For a few days, like the first week, I can tell you the truth, I didn't do any of that stuff. Okay. I just thought that was weird and like, why? I asked myself, why? Why do I need to do it, you know? Until nothing else was working except for hope.
Yeah.
That's when Mr. Angel came in, right?
Right.
This is it. Like, this is it. You need to do this. Mm-hmm. Listen to me, son. Like, this is it. You're in bad shape. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. We had this big ICU uniform thing on. He goes, that's what I do for ICU patient. You're not in ICU, but you're about to be in the ICU. Yeah. You're going to do that anyways, so you need to listen to me. You need to be coachable. He didn't say it exactly like that, but you need to listen. Then I tell myself, it's always when you're to a point that you have, either you move out of inspiration or out of desperation, like, Yes. So I was not inspired to move in the beginning, but towards the end I was desperate, right? Because nothing else was working. Yeah. And I just hope people don't get to that point, right? I hope people actually move with inspiration versus desperation, because that was even more painful. I wish I could have done that in the beginning. Maybe it would have been better for me, So I talked to a few friends of mine who's in the same company, and, when they got in the hospital, they called me. I become this, educator of COVID.
Like,
what to do in the hospital.
Yeah.
I talked to them, good friends of mine, and they're like, oh my God, thank you. I'm like, you need to do that. Like, you don't be like me. You need to do it now. Oh, it's painful. It's agony. And I say, just do it. Trust me. It's good for you. They all got out. They're all healthy again. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So they kind of learned from your experience.
So maybe that's one of the things that God put me to do, is to spread the message and help others that way. These are my good friends. I mean, I had so many calls because they all knew what I went through, my close friends. I got so many calls. When they got it and they're in the hospital, they call me right away. What should I do? I'm like, this is what you need to do. And they're all, with God's blessing, they're healthy and they're good.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So you're there and you're doing this proning position, very uncomfortable, 14 hours. And you're having conversations with your family at this point, FaceTime, while you're in this position, correct?
I remember that.
And you're saying, you shared with us already that up to this point, you didn't really want to worry them as much. But now...
They see you.
Yeah, they see you. Obviously, you don't look like you're doing well. And you're thinking, you don't know if this is going to work. You know, and possibly that by that time tomorrow, you're on a ventilator. All right? Do you recall any of the conversations then? I mean, they know this now at this particular point, right? So what were
I didn't talk to my mom and dad until like a week I was in the hospital.
Okay.
I didn't FaceTime them after a week. My wife right away because she took me there.
Yeah.
But my parents, no. I was like, just don't tell my parents. They can't do anything anyways.
Okay.
I didn't talk to them for a whole week. But yeah, I remember that conversation, those conversations.
So was it almost in your head, was it almost like things I need to say in case I don't get to say them?
Oh, I say a lot of those.
Yeah.
A lot of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, how much I appreciate them.
Mm-hmm. So
It's almost like to the end when you feel like you're dying.
Yeah.
You want to say, I remember calling my cousins and my aunts and like I just, certain things that I want to get off my chest, like,
Sure.
you know, how much I love you, how much I care about you, and whatever things that we disagreed on, like, you know, like nothing else matters besides
Right.
love.
Exactly.
Really, love kept us alive and kept all of us. Really, so there's a lot of those conversations. Like, hey, look, I just want you to know, whatever happens, I love you. I care about you.
So I can't help but think as you're sharing that there's a lot of people out that are watching this right now, and they may have so many things that they really should say, or maybe there's been little arguments, petty little things that aren't that big of a deal that has caused them not to really be talking to people that they've cared about in their life, and stuff that's really just dumb in the full scale of things, right? And maybe due to pride or whatever it is, stubbornness, they just don't want to do it. Yeah, ego. So what do you want to tell them now? I mean, here you're in a place where it's like, none of this stuff matters now, right? Would you want to give them some advice to not wait until they get to that point? You had, in a way, as tragic as this was and as difficult as this was, you got to see something and have an opportunity to do something that some people never get because they're just riding down a road one day and they just have a heart attack and die or whatever, and they never have those conversations. So what would you want to tell somebody like that?
So I talk about the word ego a lot. I actually apologize to some of my teammates about the ego that I had when I was still healthy and, conquer the world.
Yeah.
I apologize to them. I'm going to say, I just want you to know, sometimes my ego get in the way. And I thought about it. I did a lot of research on ego. There's an acronym for it. Ego means edging God out.
True. Okay.
So when the ego gets in the way, you're not clear. But when you take the ego aside, then you have a real conversation like the Lord speaks to me. Like, I don't think God has an ego with me, right? Like,
Right.
I don't have an ego with him for sure, right?
Sure.
So when that's out of the way, you can have a pure conversation.
Okay.
The conversation goes to more about appreciation, about being grateful, loving each other,
Yeah.
helping each other like brothers and sisters. That was a kind of conversation. I wish I had more of those conversations, and I did, but I wish I can have more of those meaningful conversations before I got sick.
Right. So it's kind of something I'm sure you're going to remember. throughout life, as you hopefully have, Lord willing, 50, 60, 70 more years, right? This is the type of lesson I think that to a degree is always going to stay with you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Can't forget that.
Definitely. Sometimes they have to be dramatic enough so that it's not just a fleeting.
Oh, it was dramatic for sure.
Definitely. Not just a fleeting memory. Well, let's just kind of wrap up in this particular area now. There's so much talk out there, even now. I mean, obviously COVID has changed since you had it. Different variants, maybe seemingly not as strong, at least at this point. We don't know what the future holds. There's this issue, you'll hear this phrase a lot, faith over fear. Okay? I think you experience both. You experience faith and faith through it, and yet obviously legitimate fear, which is totally understandable. How would you tell somebody to balance that now? I mean, because you got the person that's just like, oh, I don't want to ever go through what, say, you went through. That'll just like totally hide themselves in the house and just be terrified, and yet I don't know if you can really, I've known people who have done that and they still get sick. So how would you suggest balancing the fear of going through something like that, but at the same time, you got to live the life that God has put in front of you, and you can't just go hide yourself somewhere. So any thoughts on that?
I still think faith over fear. Because I can't live life behind fear.
Right.
Like even though being in my position and gone through what I went through, I still believe in faith over fear. Because you'll be surprised how many people, you, for example, how we got connected. We know each other for some time now, but we never had a conversation for over a decade.
Right.
But we've known each other for more than a decade.
Sure.
But it got us together like this.
Right.
And it's beautiful. It's awesome, like this friendship and, so faith got us together. And you'd be surprised how many people that over my DMs and text messages, the moment they knew about my situation, they called, they cried, they text, prayed for me.
Yeah.
And that's all that's all faith.
So you could feel that, right?
For sure.
Definitely helped to give you extra
For
strength.
sure. That's faith.
Yeah.
The prayers, the support, the friendship. It's all faith. So yeah, I still think you have to have faith in something. You got to have faith. Can't live. Even though, if I have to go back, I still have faith. It's still faith over fear. Never changed.
Here's a twist on that question. It
Okay.
just came to my mind.
Okay.
Has faith been strengthened by fear?
100%.
Yeah. Almost as if it couldn't grow to the point it grows without facing the fear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Without going through that, I don't think my faith would be this strong.
Sure. Sure.
It's all God's work.
Right. So definitely.
I wouldn't agree to do something like this a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'd be like, I'm not, if you were to ask me a year ago about, let's do a podcast about your success, your business, your family. No, I'll probably turn you down. Right? But
Right.
because of what happened, and that's why we're talking. So,
Yeah.
To your credit, for sure, it's been strengthened. Faith.
Absolutely.
Because of fear.
And so tying that in, and we'll kind of wrap up with this question I didn't get to ask you, but I think it's the perfect time to ask you now. What, if any, sense has God given you now as far as the future? Obviously, he has, like Jeremiah 29:11 says, he has plans for you. He has plans for all of us, and he knows what they are. He obviously has plans, or he wouldn't be here. He would have just let you die in the hospital. Okay? So besides the gratefulness, which you've already brought in, do you sense, I mean, obviously you don't know for sure, but is there some type of direction that he's leading you into for the future?
A lot of things. One of the things that we talk about was having more of these youth group and retreats, because that was a calling from him to buy the land a year ago. And I'm like, what can we do with some land that we own? That was a calling.
Okay.
And during lunch we offer that is because of that.
Right.
So I want to do more of those.
Okay.
Because that's, growing up as an immigrant, I remember when I moved from LA to Arizona, that was the second time my faith was strengthened. I was in this youth group program. I remember that because I was by myself.
Yeah.
No family, mom and dad, just me. And it's this youth group that took me out to camping and fishing and doing all those fun stuff together that brought me closer to God. I was 21 at that time.
Okay.
21, 22 at that time. What if I can actually bring that to others, other youth group, as an example and of what's out there in God. I want to do more of those. And I think I'll be blessed even more with him to do that for others.
Right.
So that's one of my big thinking stuff.
Okay.
Is to do more retreats and youth group retreats for young America, whether it's a leadership or entrepreneur or religion, like some kind of faith camp.
Sure.
I would like to talk to you about that. That's the reason why I ask you, right, during lunch. This is before our interview. I just thought about it because I'm like, what can I do to help? We can arrange something and where we can actually do a faith youth camp at my ranch. So that, and also through the business that I have. I want to get back into the business to talk more about the importance of having protection, having preparation, having the right planning, because I'm in the business of planning for others.
Right.
And it's because of what this world of knowledge that this company brought to me when I was younger, before I had kids, before I had, a family.
Right.
But the benefit of that is having a financially free recovery.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine somebody going through what I go through. That's like millions of people right now out there.
Sure.
Going through what I go through with COVID and healing with the burden of money.
Yeah.
But because of our business and our company, and because of that, we didn't have to worry about that, the hard work you put into it.
Sure.
So I think that's huge. I want to be more active. So that brought me back to the business.
Right.
To go at it again. You know what I mean? Because I was off for like 5-6 months.
Yeah.
Just to really recover. Like, I'm getting better now.
Right.
Maybe 95%. I told you I can start running again and working out again.
Yeah. Lifting
a little bit harder now. But, Q4 of last year, I couldn't lift. It's just no way. I was 26 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
I've gained back, after I lose 26 pounds, I've gained back about 15, 20 pounds.
Okay.
Strength. So I want to do that through the business, through assets, through the blessings that I had. I want to give back.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. This has been a great conversation. We really appreciate so much you sharing a lot of stuff from the heart, a lot of stuff that's very personable. But I know that it'll definitely be a blessing. It's going to help some people out there. And that's part of the reason God's arranged for us to be able to do this. How's the best way to reach out to you if someone wants to reach out to you?
Follow on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just with your name?
Yeah, David Lynn LT.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I know that if you want to reach out to him, he'd be more than happy to respond if you're out there and maybe you've been touched by his story or you have a question on anything that he shared today, feel free to do that. He's a great guy, great man, and I definitely would always recommend him to anyone. So definitely thank you so much for this. And if you've watched this podcast and been blessed by it today, make sure that you share it with someone else, because I'm sure it'll be a blessing to them also. So God bless each and every one of you. This has been the Audacious Faith Podcast. Go out there and change the world. Take care.
All right. Thank you.